One, and we are recording. I'm joined by Sergey Panashchuk. This is Here and There with Will Richardson here and Sergey Panashchuk there in Odessa. I am sitting presently in Warsaw. I will be on the road in the coming couple of months in various locations. But right now, Warsaw in Poland, and what better place than Warsaw and Odessa to speak about what's been happening with the war in Ukraine. Sergey is a writer for the Daily Mail and also The Sun out of London, UK. He also writes for many other publications throughout Europe and Germany and other countries, covering up close and very personal the war. Sergey lives in Odessa, as I mentioned, and of course Odessa has been coming under constant drone attack and missile attack since the beginning of the war. And that's only got worse, hasn't it, Sergey, during the holiday season? You were telling me a story before off camera about bombing at our Christmas day or Christmas Eve. And of course, that's yours is coming 2 weeks after ours, the Orthodox. Might as well say that. It's our Christmas, New Year's season now. Yours is your New Year's is coming up, but your Christmas is after. Isn't that correct?
Actually, we are celebrating Christmas 2 times now, because in December it was the Christmas. It was Catholic Christmas, and half of the country are Catholics.
And celebrating the Catholic Christmas. Okay.
Yeah, and it's now it's also established state holiday. Not during the war, because during the war we don't have holidays at all. But it's established like legally, and now we have 2 Christmases, and I celebrate them both because I like Christmas.
Sounds like fun. I love Christmas too. The whole 12 days, and in Poland you have Christmas Day as a holiday. Christmas Eve is the big get together for families, but Christmas Day also is good. And then that's a holiday, and then New Year's is a holiday, and also 12th night, which is one of my favorite days. I'm glad that it's a holiday in Poland. It's not in most countries, but I think it should be. Christmas time to remember all the important things in life, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we need more holidays.
Yeah. Why do you like Christmas particularly, or this holiday season?
Well, I'm a human being.
Exactly. We noticed, yeah. But it's just, I find it's a nice break. I mean, do you find that it's a nice break in the winter, and it's good to spend time with people that you care about, right?
Of course, it was Christmas Eve and Christmas. It was the like most beloved holidays since we're children. Like in Ukraine, it's also like a big deal. But the New Year is the biggest deal, and I think it's only because it comes first before Christmas. Because like Christmas here is 6-7 February.
Yeah, it's after New Year. Yeah.
In my part of the country, but in Western Ukraine, people were celebrating on 23rd.
On the 23rd.
Yeah.
Of December or January?
Yep.
Of December, yeah. I remember in Easter having Easter in Central Europe, and then crossing over to go to Lvov, and not realizing it was also Easter there. I had 2 Easters one year. It was about 10 years ago. It was a lot of fun. It was very nice.
Now we have 2 Christmas. So.
Yeah. You said you had these missile and drone attacks on Christmas Eve. What was or Christmas Day? What was that like?
We didn't have them in Odessa, but throughout the country. And I think at 5 o'clock in the morning we had a blackout because Russians doing the same thing they were trying to do during the 2 years to disable us from, like, basically they want us to go back to the Stone Age, to the same conditions that they are living. That they are having in their villages with no water, no human, no civilization. So they are trying to destroy our energy system for 2 years already. They really do not succeed in this because like they invest missiles and drones worth billions. Actually, if you combine all the amounts of money that they spend on these rockets and drones, it's billions of dollars. And often we have a blackouts after this attack. Like there could be no light for a day or maybe for two if it's really um, a powerful attack. But usually everything gets restored. Everything got fixed except for, of course, people, because sometimes they kill people who work in the energy facilities. Uh, this could not be returned. And but speaking about this Christmas, we didn't have lights maybe for 5 or 6 hours, starting from 5 o'clock in the morning in Odessa, and then the lights back on. And also we have schedules, so we know after every attack, energy companies are preparing the schedules, so they would switch some areas off and switch some areas on. So it would not be like that, that like the whole city or the whole part of the city is in a blackout. And like this is a huge city with over 1 million people in there.
So they've had to adapt over time. I remember talking to the mayor of Rivne, who became a friend, actually, certainly a dependable colleague over the time of the war. And he was talking about how they had to adapt to these attacks from time to time, and that just basically this is where I came in on the logistics of the war in Ukraine, was being briefed for him by him when he was at this uh, World for Ukraine conference in Rzeszów in southern Poland, where there's a big NATO military base. And he was going around trying to find generators because this was near, coming into the first winter of the war, so 2022. And all the problems they were having, it sounded, incredible. Yeah, I was there last year at Christmas time, or just before, and I'm glad to say Rivne was full of light.
Yeah, we have generators like restaurants, bank facilities, and especially hospitals. They all have generators, like huge size. Uh, they're amazingly big, and also they are making they're really loud. So like when you're going outside, even if you don't know that's the blackout, when you're going outside and you hear the like noises of different generators, then you can tell that it's a blackout.
Yes, that's the hum of the generators is
Yeah.
telling you what the situation is. Listen, Sergey, you were a guest on my television show many times. You've been at the front a whole lot, um, and you even went with our friend Michael Houlihan up to the by the river. Where exactly were you when you went with him? Do you remember?
Went to Kherson.
Yes, Kherson. Yeah.
Yes, Kherson. There was a humanitarian mission for hospitals.
Yeah, he's from Aspen Aid. He's an old colleague of mine. Started Aspen Aid, which is first responder, provides first responder equipment, quite a lot of it, over since the beginning of the war. I hope that he's going to be returning to you in the near future. Have you talked to him recently?
Yeah, actually, he congratulated me with Christmas, and I congratulated him, and he was asking for some of my materials that I did.
Yeah, very good. Speaking of your materials, what a good segue, because I'm fascinated to hear something about your recent article that was from the front line that was in The Sun. You had a nice spread in The Sun, which is shows that they're still dedicating plenty of space to the war in Ukraine, even if others have dropped off their coverage, particularly in the USA. Um, can you tell us about that story, how you went about getting that story, and the essential points of that story, please?
Yeah, sure. So I went to east eastern Ukraine, and I was in contact with one of the brigades. I applied for a permission to get to as close to the front as I can, like in these circumstances. And you know that it's really hot right now in the Eastern Front, in the Donetsk direction, because Russians are trying to take just as many land as they can, and they use actually Soviet tactics, the same tactics that they were using in Stalingrad. They are attacking in waves, and just this is a like pure zombie movie. They are coming in waves, and they just got eliminated. They got obliterated by the FPV drones, by the artillery shell, but it doesn't stop them. So they're going another wave and another wave and another wave and another wave. It's really like it's crazy. And in the end, some one of the 10 wave or 9 wave can get to the position which they want to get, and actually that's how they are losing more than 2,000 soldiers. Russians are losing more than 2,000 soldiers a day, which like
How do we know they're losing that many? Who's doing these counts? How
uh,
can we be sure that of this average loss at this point, Sergey?
this is a kind of approximate figure, but how it figure is coming to light. So every brigade who is there in the front lines, or even like every brigade who is in front lines in Kursk and whatever, like in every area, they report to the headquarters about how many Russians they eliminated. And these calculations are being done by the drones, so they can see like the dead bodies lying, and they calculate them and then send, and then headquarters is getting all this data together.
So you're using drones to survey the battlefields.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I've always wanted to ask about that, and I hadn't got an answer that was sufficient, but that's a good answer. Thanks. Um, because a lot of people dispute the amount of soldiers that are killed and wounded, right?
That's exactly true, and
Uh,
I think like these figures is really downplayed, because you don't know actually the one they were rescued, the one that was evacuated, what happened to them, did they die, and it's really hard actually to be precise when you talking about the statistics of casualties and wounded. But I think the figures that we have from the Ukrainian headquarters are actually downplayed. I think the figures of losses are much more bigger than that.
you think losses for on both sides?
I think so.
Huh. The there's some talk of 1 million casualties. We'll come back to your story because your story is about visiting the hospitals and things,
Yeah.
uh, and the care stations. But there are some figures saying the Russians have lost 1 million, uh, have had 1 million casualties. That's wounded, of course, a great part of that, but still a substantial amount of people killed. Do you think that makes sense, or is that
Yeah, I think that makes total sense.
based on the human waves that you're talking about?
Yes, if you can just multiply one like one case when they're using the mid grinders, using the soldiers in mid grinders attacks, and you can just multiply, because there's a lot of right now a lot of hotspots in the east, and it was ever like that. So their tactics is the same. Like they didn't change from the Soviet times. Just send more people and see, because like they have what they think like infinite amount of people that they can get rid of, basically, because like, okay, so even if we have this amount of 2,000 Russian soldiers killed a day, in the months we have 60,000, in a year we have 700,000, 720,000. In 10 years we have 7 millions, like 200,000. This is a huge amount. This is like unbelievably scary, like an inhuman amount of people who just could be sacrificed for Putin's sake, but they still have like 150 million people, so they fucking can.
It's all right. You can say fuck if you want. I don't blame you when talking
Yeah.
about this subject.
So like they can go on, like for years with these losses, and they will not. This is
Of course,
totally.
this is not true. This is not true because Russia's below replacement population, as you already said. There's huge poverty in any of the outlying towns and villages that are not, major centers in Russia, and really only Moscow and St. Petersburg are on a Western level. Maybe parts of some of the other major cities, but um, and certainly the further you go east, the more um, the poorer these areas in Russia are. So they cannot really afford to lose all these people. We can cite the example of the French and how their French society suffered greatly from the loss of men, and then the walking wounded, who were a constant reminder and a debilitating reminder of the losses of the humanitarian losses of World War I, which took away the French will to fight when it came to World War II. It was directly I mean, you can say, historians say there's a direct correlation there. So I think that the Russian losses are very similar to the scale uh, um, of certainly some of the battles during the First World War on the Western Front. You're not losing 100,000 in one day, but you're losing them by, as you say, by these waves of attrition, chasing trenches. So, what do you think? Do you agree with me, or do you think that's you want to poke a hole in?
Yes. No, my point was different. So I mean, you are using like human logic, so you're using natural human logic. But what I'm saying is, it's like Russian authorities do not care about how many people they will lose. They don't care about the how will it affect the economy or like social situation in Russia. I don't know. Maybe they have some calculations because like they are evil, but they are not crazy. So they are not dumb. Some of them are, but not all of them. So my point is that they just don't care about the losses. Of
I think
course,
this is a great point. If I could just please carry on with this, I just want to interject, if I may, shortly, that this is something people don't understand in the United States about the Russian mentality. That why should Putin be better to the Ukrainians than he is to his own people, or the Georgians, or whoever it may be? Why should he be better to them than he is to his own people? Because he treats his own people even worse, doesn't he? By the
exactly,
exact example, by the precise example that you're using. Carry on, please.
exactly, and this is like we didn't see any riots in Russia. So many losses, so many fates broken, so many families broken, but nothing's happening like socially right now. This is also like was something that Ukrainian government will rely on. Like uh, when Russian society will see the amount of losses that they will would want to stop the war, but it's not happening. Of course, I mean, uh, judging by the polls, and we don't know if we can trust these Russian polls or not. Amount of people that supports war in Ukraine now is slightly lower, and it's like 50-50 right now. It's not like 70% like it was before, and probably it's only because the Ukrainian defense attacks on Russian oil refineries, like on attacks in Russia. So they can see now it's actually the war coming there, and like it's not Ukraine who started it. No matter what Putin, because like his rhetoric is like mad rhetoric that Ukraine asked it, and Ukraine was about to attack Russia. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, he said the same thing about Poland provoking Germany in his conversation with Tucker Carlson, his infamous conversation uh, with an American journalist who ought to know better, who didn't take him up on that.
Because apparently that's what you do if you're like a smaller country and there is a bigger country. That's what you do. Like you're just like a smaller country. You want to give them good. Like that's totally logical, right? It's
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
like David who
And
uh,
Goliath,
and Goliath.
David and Goliath. And so Ukraine, like Poland, want to get their own back. And remember the past, you see. And another thing people seem to forget that you also mentioned, a lot of commentators, particularly in the United States, is that um, Russians started this and they have massacred people. Putin is directly responsible for this war. I don't want to hear this shit about NATO and how the Russians, oh, poor Russians. They said NATO said they weren't going to encroach on them. What kind of Jesuitical thinking is this? It's ridiculous. It's casuistry. Uh, it is making up fitting facts together to meet a rather absurd conclusion. The way to avoid war is not to wage war. The way to engage in peace is to be a good, peaceful partner, none of which Russia seems able to handle, historically or now.
Yeah, that's totally true. Like Russia, uh, Putin only now interested in like becoming like to write his name in the history of Russia as someone who actually gained land for Russia, because like since collapse of Russian Empire, the Russia was shrinking. So they lost Finland, they lost Poland. Uh, Soviet Union was not as big as Russia. And then Soviet Union collapsed and Russia got even smaller.
Yeah.
And like and he wants to change that, but like in the ways. And actually it could have been maybe done, like he might have restored the Soviet Union, like make some union just like European Union, but something different with the economics, like if he was developing his economy of his country, if he some like innovative projects, whatever. But it's only the corruption and that's corruption and the power of his army that he relies on. And before Ukraine, he succeeded in Georgia, and he thought that in Ukraine it's going to be the same.
I was there. I was there when the Russians were in Georgia. I went straight along their lines to Gori, passing kilometers of tanks and soldiers, uh, pretending to be a German, actually, not an American. I had a German press pass, and was with local journalists from Tbilisi. So yeah, I've seen them, a lot of Russians and a lot of their tanks up close. Yeah. So I know it's like that was August of 2008. For those who don't know, I just want people to know that neither you or I are new observers of the Russian phenomenon of having to invade and kill people in other countries, uh, and then without any invitation from those countries or any form of their governments to do so, to come in and establish order, for example. I mean, this is not comparable to the Afghan or Iraq situations for America, although I was not in favor of going in, staying so long in either country. But initially, I thought they were good ideas, because somebody has to fill the power vacuum, right? And we see what's happening in Syria now. What's happened in Syria Israel was given, and the Kurds have been given the support they need, and we see what's happening in the Middle East. We need to do the same thing, it seems, to stabilize Central Europe. Or we're going to be fighting this for a long time. What do you say?
Yeah, I believe that the war is only will over when Ukraine will have upper hand. So, and to do this, we actually need here on the ground. We need foreign troops. Putin is not going to fight with NATO. It's impossible, like, because he is a pragmatic person. He continues the war because by his assessment, he can get some more land here right now. He doesn't understand that it's not possible to conquer the whole Ukraine or even like um, some areas like Kherson or Zaporizhia. So he can see that he can gain more lands, and that's why he continues. And we need to make sure that it will not be the case anymore. So we need to make sure that his army will not be able to get anything. And we can only do that by having foreign troops here. Ukrainian army is in a very exhausted state right now after 3 years of the war, and some soldiers have been fighting in the front lines all this time. Some of them didn't have a leave even. It's a huge problem, and like right now, it's not really. We don't know how to solve it right now. So yes, the mobilization of people does not cover all the need of the soldiers right now. It's not the amount of soldiers that are being recruits that are being mobilized right now do not cover the deficit. It's already.
You mean the amount of casualties? Is that what you mean?
Casualties like
No, I'm not saying.
people
Yeah,
tired, like yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's not covering the incoming is not covering the losses. That's your point, right?
Yeah, I mean, but loss is not only like the soldiers that have been killed. Uh, there is real deficit of infantry right now. Really, like we have this is our big problem, and there are a lot of uh, this deficit was created because I think that Ukrainian government didn't have a plan actually for such a long war, and like nobody had any strategy.
Who did? Who did?
Yeah, of course. It's
Yeah.
totally. It's not like blaming on our
No,
government
no.
for that.
Yeah, yeah.
And now we have the problem with because the mobilization was not somehow was not centralized. Uh, from the first day, there was like really few million men who wanted to join the army from the first days of the war. But 95% of them were sent 90, 95, 85, I don't know. But the bigger amount of these people were sent home because they were just not ready, like military recruitment centers were not ready to process such amount of people, and then people were starting to create in their own territorial defense, like self-created units that were after that incorporated to the army, and even in these units there were no places, there were no free spots. So it was like really huge patriotic movement inside of Ukraine, and like if the government did a better job, so we could have like 2 millions, like 1 million, 2 millions army like in the first days of the war, and then you have problems, of course, how to equip these people, how to do the logistics and everything else. But you can solve these problems after you have these people. Everything can be solved. Now, this is the biggest problem that people do not want to. Like in generally, like everyone who wanted to join the army already did it. And now we have this deficit in the infantry, and infantry is the most infantry and the storm and the assault troopers are the most um, deadly, are the most non-safe thing that you can do in the army. So of course, like people want to leave.
Yeah, and I even heard that just to highlight what you're talking about, I read, and I wanted to ask you about this. If it's, I just wanted to ask you about it, see what you had to say. That there was an entirely robotic attack on the Russians recently. Did you hear about that? Is that true? Or
Yes, so like in offensive and defensive, the drones are used like a lot. So we're trying to cover deficit with infantry with the technology.
isn't that a good idea if it works? Isn't that a great idea?
That's actually a really good idea because you can save lives of Ukrainians.
And isn't this revolutionary technology as well?
That's the first war when we have something like that. This like the first war of the future when technologies are really doing when technologies are super important and like everything is based on technologies.
Yeah.
And this is why we can still stand against Russians because obviously they have bigger army than we have, and we can stand only because not only bigger army because they have much more resources and lots of allies like Iran and North Korea who just support them with ridiculous amounts of weapons.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous that North Korea can actually gave more weapons than in terms of bullets and shells than the West to Ukraine.
And the West can. But yeah, it is madness. And what I'm sending you psychic vibes because I wanted exactly to ask you after that point about the robot attacks or using electronic warfare. I wanted to ask you about the North Koreans and what's the story on that? What are you hearing inside Ukraine about the efficacy, about the importance of the North Koreans, about how many they are, about where they're operating?
North Koreans are mostly based in Kursk, and some of them were deployed to Donetsk region as well, but mostly Kursk. And it's actually emphasized that Russia also have a problem, has a problem with infantry. Manpower, yes, because now they're using this like mid-grinder wave attacks, and they actually spend more people than they can mobilize as well. So they will have the problem. They will have the problem with the lack of soldiers very soon, if not now, and they will have to either do bigger mobilization or they will have to stop. That's also like one, and we don't know because we don't have enough information. We don't know what's really happening. So we only see this picture in the front right now when they're going. But like they also could like stop just at one point, and then we will be able to retake the positions. And that might be also like point of negotiation.
How goes the fight in Kursk?
Ukrainian army is still holding on there, like still holding on all the major points. I think the President Zelensky reported that over 1,000 North Koreans were killed, and there are like 10,000 or something like that.
Are they effective fighters, the North Koreans? What other than just are they mass attacking? What's going on? Do they have a different strategy?
From the reports that I get, Russians are just using them to increase the amount of this waves, and they're just like it's hard. Like it's hard for the Russian commanders even to communicate with them, and they have translators, and they don't really understand the Russian commanders on the field. They don't really understand why are they doing here.
They don't understand what they're doing here. Again, like a lot of the Russian conscripts as well. Why the heck are we here? Why are we fighting Ukrainians? It doesn't make sense. But this is classic Russia stuff, and we kind of covered that mentality, didn't we? Um, what do you think was the point? We'll come back to cover some of the hospital stuff because I'm interested in that in a sort of deeper way, because I also wrote a story with photographs about a hospital in Western Ukraine. But we'll come back to that because this is interesting. Do you think the attack on Kursk has been successful, or do you think it's a red herring? Do you think it's just it's a distraction?
Well, I personally think that it should have been done, like 2 years ago. But we just didn't. We could have done this instead of counteroffensive in Zaporizhia, and that would be amazing, really. Because we just didn't have enough troops to march to the Kursk or to the nuclear power plants. There are layers, there are layers how you can evaluate this. And the first thing, Ukraine was the first country who really invaded Russia since the World War II, and invaded successfully, because part of it is still under Ukrainian control. And it was also to show the world that actually Russian army is not really that great, and the Putin is not going to do anything even if his country invaded. So there are no really red lines. He is not able or do not want to use the nuclear weapons, which is would be, of course,
Well, this is the catastrophe that everybody has in the back of their minds that we've had since the end of World War II, since the first atomic bombs were dropped.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I grew up with this. I guess you did too. And you guys had, you and your countrymen had Chernobyl as well. Let's not forget, in 86 was it? Which was. It was and still is a world headline. I was there. I went to Chernobyl too, on a tour. Have you been there?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's quite an extraordinary scene there. But in terms of the ghost towns and the graveyards of vehicles and aircraft and the wildlife, it's surged in this area during this time, but also the way they took care of that factory and put the cover over it and the rest of it. It's a phenomenal thing. There's that ghostly Ferris wheel in Pripyat as well, which is, of course, an iconic image.
And then Russians were marching down the Chernobyl area and were making trenches there and digging themselves into the radiation dirt.
In the beginning of the war, of this war, right? Yeah. It's how to understand the Russian mentality. You're Ukrainian. Any insights?
It's totally out of this world. I mean, it's this is hard to explain. I do understand it because I was born in Soviet Union. I do remember how the Finns were there. I was a child, but I still remember and understand. And of course, I was taught in Soviet school before it was Ukrainian school, and with all this Russian literature and Russian television. We had a lot of Russian television in the 90s and in the beginning of the 2000s. It's like I can write a book about it.
I wish you would. I'll buy it.
Then
I'll buy it first day. I'll buy it first day.
There are a few things of the Russian mentality. The first is over more than 400 or 500 years there was a Tsar in Russia, and nothing changed. When they had the communist revolution, Lenin and Stalin just replaced the Tsar in terms of that he was the dictator, like the one person who decides. And after that, they had a like really brief period of so-called democracy, more like plutocracy. And then they had Putin, who just he behaves like a Tsar. He thinks that he is a Tsar. He thinks that he's a savior of the Russia, and just only one person who decide. And Russians were told to love their Tsar, for 500 years. They were told um, by the Orthodox Christian bishops, like Orthodox Christian Church was super um, ingrained with the government, and they were like during the 500 years just like putting this idea that Tsar is good, that Tsar is going to take care of you. And Russian Orthodox Church also cooperated with in Soviet Union with KGB, because like every after communists realized that they actually that would be much more effective for them not to forbid the church but to cooperate with priests. They started recruit them as a KGB agents, and it was very convenient because people are telling to the priest they're lying to priest, and like so one thing is that church was promoting the idea that Tsar is a father, the Tsar is going to take care of you, and it's pretty simple, like for a guy, like for a simple guy who works all day and then he drinks vodka, and he doesn't really need to do anything more, just like, and after that he will have like pension, small, but he will still be able to buy his vodka, and that's all he needs.
Yeah, vodka is a very important currency in
It's a
Russia.
religion. I would say it's a religion.
Yes. Yeah. I wrote something about vodka. I was doing some research about it, and I came to, I had an inkling, but I definitely came to the conclusion. I agree with you. Yeah, that it's it's something that people don't understand. Uh, Whiskey is no match for vodka
No,
in terms of the Russian
they would probably kill
spirit.
you if you just poured them whiskey instead of vodka. Like, because that's what they got used to. Traditions, customs. It's very important in Russia. Like traditions, there are very.
Would you say it's almost a sacrament, this vodka? It
Yeah.
goes along with the preaching of the church. It goes along with the father of the country taking care of them. And this vodka is the sacrament, which brings out which stills the intellect, stills the mind, and brings out the sort of this passive acceptance.
Yes, exactly. Like they have no critical thinking at all. And in Soviet Union, people were very gullible, like extra gullible. They actually believed everything they heard from TV, from that everything they heard from media, and that made it possible for Putin, to control these people because they were already prepared. Of course, there was different generation from that was like born not in the Soviet Union but in Russia, like the young generation. But still, the propaganda in Russia is super huge. And even when I was like, because I'm a journalist and I have to, when I was watching the Russian news, in 2022, if you do it for a week, something started, happen in your head because you're like now questioning the questioning the reality, because it's so what they're saying in their television, it's totally different world, and it's like they're picture it with so bright, so brightly that you actually can start questioning. If you don't have a critical thinking, then you're gone. So they can buy attention, and like they can make believe for anyone in anything.
Yeah, it's incredible. Let's go back to the hospital story,
Yeah.
because you were just there. As I said, I wrote a piece with a photographer about a clinic in Western Ukraine dealing with PTSD and people who'd lost limbs. So the PTSD was very severe because of the mutilation, and I cited the French situation after World War I, when they had, a million walking wounded people who were obviously mutilated from that war, men particularly. And this has a psychological component that is for the living, both those who are in combat and those who only witness the results, that is immeasurable, perhaps, in its damage to a nation like Ukraine, just as it was to France after World War I. What's it like going into a place like that and speaking to the people, seeing the people?
Well, it's a part of my profession, like first of all, right? Ukraine has net of the field hospital so-called stabilization points. It's where soldiers from the front line got first after their injury. And of course, it's a very important branch, like in terms of saving lives or getting help to injured soldiers. I cannot tell like the like exact point where it was or like how it's like organized, but it's really it's really professional. They have everything. They have everything they need, partly from the government, partly from the charities, partly from the volunteers. But they really have everything they need, and they work pretty fast.
Hmm.
And they don't know, like so they can wait. They can wait for hours, and then they can have like 3, 4 patients at one time, and they don't know, of course, because it's not something that can be scheduled. Not always possible to evacuate a soldier right away after he got an injury,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the daytime. Most evacuations are done in the nighttime. Uh, if they can, of course, like combat paramedics, if they can, they will evacuate a person during the daytime. But it's really hard because there could be like additional shelling in this point. There could be send more drones, and you can have basically more casualties when someone's trying to evacuate. So like it's totally different. Like maybe do you remember the Hollywood movie Black Hawk Down? When they sent Americans sent a crew of people to evacuate American soldiers who were like,
Yeah, I've seen the film a bunch of times. It's an amazing story, yeah, and
yes.
and very very scary, yeah.
So here is the same, but only now with technology and with artillery. So if you send the huge team, they all can be killed.
Yep.
So you need to be smarter and like invent some other possibilities to evacuate people, and one of them is actually drones. So sometimes they use surface ground drones. But
What sort of rolling or walking drones that would go
rolling,
to?
it's a rolling platform.
Okay.
Sometimes when soldiers are
Yeah.
conscious, they can like mount themselves on these drones
Yep.
and they can evacuate them. But it's only used, not really wisely. But they're now starting, so they're trying to invent some new technology to help with the evacuation. Uh, The huge problem is that you can only have a tourniquet on your limb for a couple of hours. After that, the necrosis
The limb starts to die, and
limbs
gangrene will set in shortly after.
to
Yeah.
die. So
Yeah.
on soldiers with these wounds should be helped as soon as possible, but it's not always happening. And like sometimes people are forced to have the tourniquet like for a few days, and there's of course nothing you can do to save the limb. And sometimes people in the field hospital, in the stabilization points, need to decide. Uh, do they need
These,
to?
these these stabilization points are very close, aren't they?
Yeah, there are just few
To the front.
kilometers. There are just few kilometers from the very front line, because you need to be able to help as soon as you can.
As quickly as you can. And you're saying that sometimes they have to make a choice who they're helping and who they're leaving. Is that what you
Uh,
were about to say?
I didn't witness that. What I'm saying is that they need to uh, make a choice if they cut the limb
Okay.
or not. That's. Oh,
They need to make a fairly rapid choice, you're
yes,
saying. Yeah,
exactly.
because they can't leave them in the tourniquet for so long, because then it threatens the person's life,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Is that what you mean? No.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's so we know the feeling. I'm not going to ask you what it feels like to be there because I know and you know, but it's terrible to see people suffering in this way. Of course, um, that's I don't think you can say more than that. You might be able to show it or write it, but in a conversation, I think it'd be just a conversation between us would be going too far because we know it's horrible. That's a word that covers it. But um, uh, what can be done? What is needed to, apart from a cessation of hostilities, Russian, at least partial pullback, um, let's to make the situation better? I mean, let's leave that question because I don't know that we haven't. I don't think there is an answer right now. Do you?
There is no simple answer, of course.
More resources and more doctors and more equipment and eventually less soldiers being sent into these terrifying and wasteful conditions. Uh, what do you think about the recent call from President Trump and the uh, noises being made by Mr. Zelensky, if not the other side, um, about the possibility of a ceasefire? What do you hear? What do you think personally?
Well, it's a big division in on this point. So some soldiers I talked to, they actually believe it's going to happen, and they think that Russia now is trying to move the front a little bit. So they're trying so hard to do it right now before the talks. Many soldiers are really like tired and exhausted, and they think that it's what's going to happen. There's some kind of a frozen conflict. It's not what they want to happen, but there is nothing you can do about it because it's not for them to decide. Uh, I'm not sure in which format it actually can be done, and like my personal opinion, it's that both of them, Putin and Trump, think that they can bend over each other. I think that Putin thinks that he
They can
can.
push each other over, right? One
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
yeah, they still doing that, yeah, or have that mentality. Okay, and
I don't think that any one of them want actually to compromise or take other view into consideration. Putin wants his thing, Trump wants his thing, and like when they will have a real meeting, and then when they will understand that actually it's not possible to convince that Trump is not able to convince Putin, Putin is unable to convince Trump, then something will start to happen because otherwise they're now both of them believe that they can actually be friends. But
what do you think about this? Well, I don't think you can be friends with Vladimir Putin. I mean, how can you be? Uh, but based on his record, but the things he's done, forget what he says, the things he's actually done. I don't see how that leads to friendship, but um, you remember the comment from George Bush, I looked into Putin's eyes George Bush Jr., George Bush II. I looked into Putin's eyes, and I saw a person I could deal with. Well, we see that that wasn't true at all. What do you think is acceptable? What are people saying that you're talking to is acceptable? I know what politicians are saying, but what do you think people, ordinary people, are thinking is acceptable for stopping the war in terms of giving territory, ceding territory to Russia?
You know, like when people said about giving territory, it's. I have this analogy when someone is like I have amputated limb, you know, like, and he doesn't want to believe that he has no limb anymore. He wants to reattach it, or he wants to, or he says, okay, so like, you know,
I feel this phantom pain in my limb,
yeah,
for
I'm
example.
going to take. Yeah, no, but I still have my limb. I'm not going to take it away. I'm not going to give it away to anyone. Like,
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
right now, these areas are occupied, and to deoccupy them, um, there should be made some plans, and there should be estimation of how many people we need to deoccupy them, what kind of resources we need, how much time it will take, how many people will be killed, how many people we will lose, and how many people, resources, and time we will lose to get these territories under our control. There was no such estimation made. There was only like this urge to take them back, and it's actually the right thing that we need
Yeah.
to take them back. But there is no answer on how should we do it, or who personally should be doing this, because this is a very important question. You know, like if politicians are saying that we need to take them back, I would like to see them personally being involved in this process of taking these territories back. You know, like, and not only as members of parliament, but actually as active soldiers. Because if you want to make this possible, you need to understand that it's gonna lead to a lot of casualties, and these casualties could be estimated before. So this is really tough question, and this is the real question. It's not something in the realms of the politics. Like in the realms of politics, of course, we need to have these territories back because this is a part of Ukraine and this is the political statement. But when we're talking about the reality, so we need to understand how are we going to do this. And I think it's still possible to take these territories back, but not with the military way.
You mean through negotiation?
Uh,
And which territory? And well, I mean,
everything which is occupied by Russia right now, it's possible to take them back, not by negotiations, only by with time. If Ukraine will be a successful country, if the level of life in Ukraine will be much more higher than in the occupied territories, then the people there would want to have Ukraine there. And when Ukraine will be stronger,
right.
Ukraine either can take it back by force or can take it back by diplomacy. Uh, that's the only way. That's the only real valid way how we can do it.
That would take a change of government in Russia, wouldn't it? Or a change, a leader who is more like Gorbachev and less like, a Soviet style. I mean, a classic Soviet leader.
Yes, exactly. But you know, like uh, empires quickly, like, you know, like a star can explode just in 1 second. So a
Yeah.
star like our sun can, you know, like shine for 10 billions of years and then just explode in a second. So uh, Putin is not forever, and Putin's order is not forever. And like
I think
this,
this is an essential point. We tend to focus on the day to day, but that is a strategic point which is inescapable. But we seem to think he's going to be there forever, but he's not, is he?
that's what he believes in. You know, like in his mind, death is not applied to him.
the so the state of what the war right now, how would you sum it up in terms of the spirit of the people and their resilience and the resources necessary to continue? We've already said that the only way this thing can end is with a ceasefire and through some kind of negotiation or change of personnel in the future, the leaders. But what about the situation right now, Christmas time, New Year, in 2024 going into 2025, after almost 3 years of war?
That's like really a tough question because there's a lot of people who were not touched by the war, and of course that's a good thing. It's not like they had to, but there is a lot of people who don't think even who don't even think about the war in cities like Odessa. You know, like where we've been of course targeted by the drones and missiles, but it's not happening like every minute, and people don't think like general people don't think about the war. But and I can feel that when the last year I came from the front on the Christmas, and I was I watched people buying Christmas trees, and I was like, What's going on? Like, how can you buy a Christmas tree when we don't have enough drones in the front? You know, like because if I believe it's not gonna happen, but like if Russians will come to Odessa or to like Dnieper or whatever, you know, like your Christmas tree will be fucking useless. Like you need to like we all need to understand that mm, uh, the war is a real thing, and right now like people are dying there, and like and they are dying to stop them coming here and to perform to make another butcher, you know, to make another uh, concentration camp like they did in the occupational territory. So the Russia wants Russian in the like Russia ideology and what they are. Uh, uh, it's hard, it's complicated. So
Take it slowly. It's okay.
Russia wants to
Yeah.
obliterate us as a nation. Russia
Yeah.
wants us not to be Ukrainians, basically. So, like, if we start
They want to do to you what they did to Belarus, right?
yes, exactly. So they want to have a control, and they do not want to. They really don't understand the concept of freedom. Concept of freedom and democracy is something what they are afraid of. What they
Yes, and you put
understand.
that so well earlier in the conversation. That was a very good analysis. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and so part of the society do not realize the war is still going on and do not realize how important that is, what is right now happening in the front lines, and how life changing that could be for them. Part of the society do not understand this. Uh, Another part of the society uh, is still under influence of the statements that were made in 2022 that we have to take back Crimea and Donbass, so and we can only end the war when we have all the areas back. This is not a part of the society. It's not. I don't know how big that part is, but it's still there. Another part of the society wants it just to stop because they are all tired, exhausted, and just want to have normal life. Like and there was a devastating effect of the war on the Ukrainian economy, of course. Our currency, I don't know, it lost maybe how much. The euro was like around 30 hryvnias before the war. Now it's 45. So it's
Lost about 50% of its value.
yeah, maybe more.
Yeah.
And of course, it's very hard for the people to survive like in these circumstances. And so many of them want just to be over, and they don't really care how. Just get over with it, and that's it. And among the soldiers, it's also like divided because there is a part of soldiers who really wants to go to the really end, and they don't care. I mean, they even ready to die for their children, but their children will have a better life than them, and without Russian threat. Others are super exhausted, and they just ready to go with the flow, whatever it takes. But everyone in the Ukrainian army are ready to fight, like to continue to fight until like they will get any other orders.
So the army's still loyal, which is
Army, that's not a question of at all. Of course, our army is loyal, and the people are loyal to the army. It's like not everyone loves the government, and like this is like in any other country, but there is a connection between people and the army. It's like it's very strong, and people are.
This is not unusual. This is not unusual. In World War II, not everyone, a substantial amount of Americans did not like Roosevelt, even during the war, and were opposed to his policies. So this is not unusual. I think it's worth stating that Ukraine is, the people are human beings, and these situations take place under stress in countries throughout history.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. What have I not asked you that you could say? We've gone about an hour. Sergey, we hadn't talked for a while. What do you want to tell us, tell us that we should know that I haven't asked you about? Anything?
That's really tough question. It's like I can go on. I can go on and on. I don't know, like some general stuff that we need more help. What I wanted to say is that that was the part of the Putin strategy, of course, that he was making these atrocities, like every day, hitting civilian buildings, like killing people, and as long as it happens on daily basis, it's not longer the news or a topic in the West. But people are, and this is the real people. I mean, and they are getting killed day by day um, by this. I don't know how to call him even. This neo Hitler. And this was the part of his strategy, just to make more and more crimes, so people would not care anymore. And then they like. I do understand that people in the West do not care about this, not because they are bad people, it's just because there's too much information of the same kind, and like you just got used to anything, you cannot react.
And there's compassion fatigue on top of that. You're
The
just
same.
being,
Yeah,
it's like being beat over the head. You can only take so much, then your compassion uh,
exactly.
runs out. Um, it's um, it's a terrible thing, and it's just such a great shame that these things can happen. That words really fail to encompass the horror and the hardship of the Ukrainian and the Russian people. The ones who are being forced to go have no idea why they're doing it. I mean, it's a ridiculous, absurd, modern, postmodern situation, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's that's really absurd. That's 1984 in reality.
Let's
Well,
end there. I want to thank you, Sergey, for that closing statement. It's good to see you, my friend. I hope to see you in person in the not too distant future, and learn more from you and your excellent reporting, which is always a great pleasure not only to read, but to speak to you and hear, because after all, you're reporting right now to us. And I appreciate it. The people listening appreciate it. Uh, it's people like you that provide honest information and commentary that helps us to come to grips with what is one of the most difficult situations of our lifetime, and to understand. So I want to thank you. It's Will Richardson here in Warsaw. It's Sergey Panashchuk there in Odessa. See you soon, my friend, and
Thank you
thank
for
you
having
very
me.
much. Take care of yourself, and send me any of your new articles or anything you want me to read. I'm happy to do it, and you're helping me to understand.
Will do. My
Okay.
pleasure.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Ciao for now.